Hey guys, welcome back to Brian's Mysteries and Adventures on Trail. And real quick, one thing, I just noticed that a lot of people that watch my videos under the statistics aren't subscribed, the majority actually, and it would mean a lot to me if you would subscribe. Just give me a chance and help support the channel. It's free, and I take case suggestions and all kinds of feedback, anything that you would like me to cover. So yeah, just thought I'd ask that. Without further ado, today we're going to be talking about the Lost McLeod Brothers and the Lost McLeod Mine and the mystery of the Headless Valley. Now, this is in the Northwest Territories of Canada, which I featured in another video that I just posted a couple days ago. Now, this event and legend has been passed through history for years now, and it's located in the Northwest Territories, and they've actually renamed some of these places. One name is the Headless Valley and Headless Creek, which is located in Nahanni National Park and Reserve. A creek called Sheep Creek was actually renamed McLeod Creek in honor of the McLeod brothers. Today's video is going to be featuring mainly their story, but I'm also going to touch on a bunch of other people that mysteriously disappeared in and around this area searching for this mine. So the McLeod brothers, back in 1904, they were gold miners, and Frank McLeod, and there was a couple of different brothers, Frank and Willie. They also had an older brother, Charlie, but he wasn't with them on this expedition. So these two brothers were getting experience in gold mining, and they gold mined in various places like British Columbia and Alaska. And in 1904, they set out on this trip, and at being the adventurers that they were, they took a train to Vancouver, and then from Vancouver, they got a little boat, and they took a boat up to Alaska, and then they picked up a dog sled team, and they mushed their way up to the various rivers, and they, from Telegraph Creek, they went up to Dease Lake and past the Continental Divide, and eventually they made it to the Grand Flat River, where it's rumored that they found a bunch of different gold, and they met a Native American tribe. And as the legend goes, the Native Americans were not happy with the arrival of the McLeod brothers. According to various conversations with the McLeods, they said that the Indians probably had already taken most of the gold in the area. However, the McLeods did find some rather large nuggets, and they set up their camp in an area that the Native Americans told them that they had found the gold. They subsequently named this creek Gold Creek, and apparently this prospect was a small one, and the brothers used various Indian-made sluices to aid in their gold mining, and they were able to fill what was called a toothache remedy bottle that held about 10 ounces of gold and one small moose hide bag. Once the springtime came, they took their sluices, and they were able to make a box-sized boat to paddle down the Nahanni River, and they were roughly 20 miles down the river near the Cascades of 13 Drops, which was now renamed to Flat River Canyon, and this is where they would have to travel about another 110 miles down to the Flat River, and yet another 80 miles up to Liard River. And at some point during this part of the adventure, their boat broke. It started leaking apparently and basically sank. They lost everything they had except for apparently the small little bag, 10-ounce bag of gold. So unfortunately, at this point, they had to turn around and head back to Gold Creek. And once they got there, they built another boat out of their sluice box planks. And at this point, they used some moose hide and other things to try and make it to protect their possessions so they wouldn't lose them all again. They finally were able to make it down through the canyon and up to Fort Laird. And this is where they started to hatch their new plan for their next gold mining trip. And the older brother, Charlie, apparently was wiser, and he said that he wasn't going to come. And apparently Willie had decided to work for a while for the Hudson Bay Company at the fort. But in 1905, they decided to head out and search for more gold. Now, since Charlie, the older brother, wasn't going with them, it was just the two brothers, Willie and Frank McLeod, and apparently this Scottish engineer that they didn't even know, and his name, we don't really know. It might have been Wilkinson or Weir. That comes from a poem. I mean, it was really hard to find information. I don't even think the brothers knew at the time. It was just another gold miner. And they headed north towards Nahanni to try and get back to their Gold Creek and then find a new prospect. So in 1906, they were attempting to reach the Klondike in the Yukon, basically by way of passing through Nahanni, and nothing was heard from them for the next 2 years. But there was various rumors of them finding this gigantic, awesome gold mine. Now, his older brother Charlie was concerned after these 2 years, but he was actually in 1908, he was on his own gold prospecting expedition, and he actually found these two bodies that were tied to a tree. Now, he didn't know that they were his brothers. They were only later identified as the McLeod brothers, and both of them were missing their heads when he found them. Now, this was witnessed by everybody in the prospecting group. Apparently, it was between 7 and a dozen men, and they, dug a grave and they did a proper burial. Of course, Charlie was outraged, and he got in touch with the mounted police, and they started an investigation, and that they did determine that a few other hunters and trappers in the area had reported seeing a third man with the McLeod brothers, and unfortunately, none of them could really identify who it was, but there was also reports of this man being seen at several different Hudson Bay trading posts trading gold. The other clue they found was a piece of wood that had carved in it, "We've found a fine prospect." Now, of course, this didn't help the investigation at all. One of the McLeod brothers was known to carve things into wood, but this did help just solidify the legend that there is a massive gold mine out there somewhere that no one still has yet to re-find. The mounted police were able to eventually track down the third man that had been seen trading gold at the various posts, and they traced him to Vancouver, and it was estimated that he had roughly $8,000 in gold nuggets on him at the time, which is a crazy amount of money for the time. But nothing ever happened. Like, there was never any convictions. This still is an ongoing mystery. Obviously, because of the way the remains were found, it was obviously, in my opinion, human beings that did this. This was obviously foul play of some kind, but this is just an ongoing legend and mystery. But it doesn't end there. In 1963, one of the last groups of gold prospectors in the area that was from Europe that were out looking for this Lost McLeod mine, they vanished without a trace, never to be seen again. Now let's back up to 1917, when a Swiss prospector named Martin Jorgensen, he was found next to his cabin, which was burned down. This was right next to the Flat River, and he was also found without his head. Now, in 1945, another man who has never been named, but he was a miner from Ontario, he was found in his sleeping bag without his head. Now, a trapper named John O'Brien was found frozen next to his campfire with his matches still in his hand. Now, how does that happen? I mean, these are just insane things. I mean, just craziness. Then, in 1962, a pilot that was flying a small little airplane, he crashed. He survived the crash without any injury. He was able to build a camp a little bit away from where the plane had went down. He had a ton of supplies in the plane, so a few food, fuel. He had a tent, so he was well equipped to survive, and he was just waiting for rescue. So he waited and waited, and he wrote in his diary about this experience. And he saw search planes going overhead. He tried to signal them. He couldn't get their attention. He was only 6 miles, apparently, from his original intended destination before his plane crashed. Now, for roughly 50 days, he sat alone, waiting, pacing, and just doing nothing but writing in his journal and just trying to survive, waiting for a rescue. and then all of a sudden just disappeared into thin air. And we know this because the diary entries just stopped abruptly, and roughly 6 months later his plane was found just by random chance. And then that same group found his camp and his diary and read about this whole ordeal, and that's how we know about it to this day. But to this day, no further trace of him has been found, no other clues, nothing. It's just like he disappeared into thin air. Over the years, various camps were found and various remains and scattered gear along all in this valley. And some of the deaths were investigated, and they did discover that a few of the gold miners had died of scurvy. There was over 20 known deaths that occurred in this valley. And of course, they've been blamed on everything from grizzly bears to, fights between the prospectors over an actual claim, all kinds of things. And then, of course, some people say that it was the native people trying to protect their land because they didn't want the white men coming in and not only trespassing on their land, but stealing their valuable resources. But the legend of the Lost Mine and the McLeod Brothers in this Northwest Territories of Canada is truly an amazingly bizarre story. And the fact that that valley has been renamed the Headless Valley and the creek has been named Headless Creek, that are all located in this Nahanni National Park, is just unbelievable. And I mean, the fact that over 20 people have lost their lives searching for this McLeod gold mine is just crazy. And it's not the only mine of its kind. There's another mine that we're going to talk about on this channel called the Lost Dutchman's Gold Mine, and that is in the Superstition Mountains, and that's a whole nother story. But I don't know, I'd love to hear what you guys, I know a lot of you commented in my last video where I talked about the other gentleman that mysteriously went out into the woods and died under mysterious circumstances in Nahanni National Park and Preserve and in this valley. And I know a lot of you are familiar with this case, and I wasn't familiar with any of this as far as this legend and all these other mysterious deaths and disappearances, and I just find this to be insane. I mean, personally, if I had to wager my opinion on it, I would definitely say that it's foul play, whether it's just a group of people that were living in the area or other prospectors that know where the gold mine is and that didn't want other people to get there just because of the way that the remains were found. I mean, obviously an animal couldn't do those things. So even still, some of the other ones are just, I mean, what happened to the pilot? He survived the crash, and then he managed to survive for almost 2 months and then just mysteriously disappears. I mean, it's just insane. So I would love to hear your guys' feedback. And I want to thank everybody for watching, as always, and please be respectful in the comments to one another if you choose to leave them. I'm all about constructive criticism. You can leave me constructive criticism. I love that. That's fine. Anything you want to tell me as far as feedback too, suggestions, case suggestions, anything. Special thank you to co.ag for providing the background music, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Hey guys, thanks for sticking with me till the end. Just wanted to let everyone know that has ordered a calendar. They've all shipped out, so I do still have plenty left. If you are interested in one, I'll have that information in the description as always. And I am working on a special case. I am working on the big marathon video that I told you about, but I'm working on a special edition case that I will be presenting tomorrow or Friday that isn't, it's about a manhunt, and I think that everybody will be extremely interested in it. It's absolutely crazy what these two people did, and I really hope that we can help circulate the case and get it known so that we can help the authorities track these people down. So I should have that case posted by tomorrow, roughly by 5:30ish that time. And if you have your own wilderness story or a survival story or anything like that that you'd like to submit, I'll have my email in the description as always, and please send me your stories or any case suggestions. And like I said at the beginning, please consider subscribing if you're not already subscribed. It would mean the world to me. I'm really trying to grow the channel, and I do cover any case that people submit to me. So if you do submit a case, I will get it covered. I do have a long list of cases that I'm trying to get to, but I will cover it. And I'm all about giving back to you guys too. I'm always trying to think of ways to do different giveaways or find ways that I can give back to the community. So I'd love to hear your suggestions on that too.